Hello, and this video is to talk about the Saage Gladiators book. This is a setting book for the Adventure Edition of Savage Worlds, and as the name suggests, it brings the Roman arena, Roman gladiators to Savage Worlds. And it's quite a decent sized book, about 140 pages nearly. And it's quite comprehensive in its coverage of this setting. Now, obviously, Roman gladiators can be plugged into an existing Roman setting. It could be a historical Roman setting. It could be Weird Wars Rome. It could be any other Roman setting you want. Or it could be played as its own standalone campaign. So this is the chapter guide. All the things you would expect from a setting guide. Okay, and obviously we've got loads of GM advice, we've got loads of player stuff, we've got loads of new rules, and obviously we've got new edges because there are different types of gladiators out there. This one shows the special rules for Murmillo and the Retiarius. These are two particular types of gladiators. They have different fighting styles in the arena, they have different armour, they have different weapons, they have different equipment. And so they play very differently. And because the player character gladiator can become one of these types, or one of 12 main types of gladiator, there are both a standard edge, a seasoned, and an improved edge, a veteran, to allow them to get better and better at that fighting style. So we've got plenty of new edges. We've got the individual gladiator specialities, and we've got a few other new edges as well. There's a few new hindrances and so on. But we've also got lots of new rules. So there's rules about showboating, there's rules about unarmed gladiators, there's slightly tweaked rules for incapacitation, there's rules for provoking opponents, all sorts of different stuff. What there also is there's a whole load of rules about the crowd. So some of the illustrations in the book use this. So a rather fine arena model from Sarissa. It comes a kit, you have to assemble it and paint it, and it did take quite a considerable amount of time, but as you can see, I've got a load of gladiators anyway for the playtesting that I bought. I painted up. The gladiators are from EM4 and from Crusader Miniatures. But as you'll notice there, I showed you the crowd and the patron. The patron is the one who runs the games and who does the traditional, well, the movies do a thumbs up and a thumbs down for whether you survive or not. It wasn't actually like that. If you were gone, oh, it was that. If you weren't, it was that. And that was called the Polis Verso. So we've got rules for that. So what we did was we wanted to incorporate some rules that showed the gladiator getting the crowd on their side. So what you get now is when you get your action card determines some options for your desired action. So your desired action might be hit 3 times with a triple action, or it might be disarm an opponent, or it might be hit with an unarmed attack, so you can try and kick your opponent or headbutt them or whatever. If you achieve that, you earn an arena Benny from the crowd, but you also gain control of the crowd in the next turn. And the crowd has a dice type, and the higher the rank of the gladiator, the higher your character rank, the higher that dice is. And that crowd can then be used to taunt your opponent. It can be used to support yourself. It can be used to intimidate an opponent, and so on. So not only when you are making your desired action, not only do you get your extra arena Benny, but you also get the crowd on your side. Now, of course, the crowd can swing very quickly backwards and forwards. You may have the crowd support one round. Your opponent might have them the next if you fail to achieve your desired action. And so it swings backwards and forwards, and the GM can get arena bennies for the enemy gladiator as well. Now, if you then are incapacitated and you And the crowd all then turns to look at the patron to see, are they going to survive? Are they not? The more arena bennies you have, the more your chance of survival. Now, if you put your opponent down and you've got loads of arena bennies, it means you get really good rewards. So you might get money towards your eventual release. It might be you are gifted a masterwork weapon that only you can use. It might be that you get more bennies in the next session, because a campaign is not just fighting in the arena. If you've ever seen a program like Spartacus, Blood and Sand, you know, the gladiators are used as heavies as well. They're used to assassinate opponents, to beat up rivals, to guard wagons, all sorts of other stuff. And so you've got out of arena action as well. Okay, so we've got loads of new rules in there for that. We've got a whole load of new weapons, renamed weapons, rejigged weapons. So obviously things like tridents, nets, the scissor, which is basically like a metal tube that fits over one hand with a handle in it. And then you've got a metal rod that comes out with like a curved sickle blade. So we've got new weapons, we've got Roman armours and gladiator armours. And obviously gladiators didn't really wear much in the way of armour. Helmet, yes. Arm guards, yes. Leg guards, yes. But very, very rarely body armour. A few did, but not many. So we've got all of the new weapons and armour in there as well. We've also got the Ludus. So the Ludus is the gladiator training school. It's the place that the gladiators live at because they are slaves. It's the place where they train, where they eat, where they sleep, where they spend most of their time when they're either not on an outside mission or not in the arena. And so the Ludus becomes a base. And using the established sort of stronghold rules from Savage Worlds, you might start in a really poorly run, small, grotty, run-down Ludus, or you might start in a big, well-maintained, well-financed Ludus. But the more you win, the more money your gladiators will bring in to that Ludus, and the more it can be improved. So you might be able to add a dedicated medicus, a doctor. You might be able to add additional trainers, or a trophy room, or its own mini arena, etc. And these can all be added in and all have both in-game and role-playing effects. We've got a whole section on campaigns with a load of random tables. So if you've played Weird Wars Rome, you will be aware that there is a whole load of mission generators, and there are mission generators for the out of arena missions. There are a whole load of tables to generate opponents in the arena as well. So you might go on a mission where you've got to guard a cart containing the family of the Ludus owner, and you roll to see what might happen and if there's any enemies and what enemy strength they are and what complications, and even a weird event if you're playing a semi historical setting. So there's a whole load of those because it can be run as a procedurally generated campaign, and that's actually quite nice. So this harks back to an earlier book of mine, Invasion, which can be run in the same way. Gladiators could easily be run as a round robin GM, so each session a different GM takes control. They randomly generate the arena enemies, they randomly generate the outside mission, and it is strung together into a 20-session campaign. And that way everyone gets to play and everyone gets to GM, which I think can be quite a nice thing. So we've also got a plot point campaign. And you'll see here that session 1 is condemned. The standard by the book campaign for gladiators is that everyone starts as a condemned. So we have a rather nice little condemned mini here of someone sobbing on the floor because they're about to die. The arena was used as a way of executing criminals or undesirables in the Roman Empire. So your characters start off and they are condemned. They've been condemned to death in the arena, but because they're wild cards, they are probably going to survive. Now, I said probably there. this is one of those situations where it is not impossible for a character to die in that introductory session. And I know some people say, oh, well, I've created the character, but it's quite quick to create characters, and it's not a big hindrance, if you like, if your initially created character dies. And once you've survived that initial fight, you then get taken on as a trainee gladiator. Now, to begin with, you're not much good, but as you get better and better and better and better, you start becoming more and more and more valuable, and so you become more essential to the owner of the ludus. So we've got a whole plot point campaign going through. We've got a load of setting information. There's pages and pages and pages on daily life as a gladiator, what happens when a games is run, the structure of arenas, big arenas, small arenas, the Colosseum, how gladiators featured in daily life. There are reports that people sold gladiator sweat of their favourite gladiators. Gladiators were like the big football stars or the big sports stars of their day. They were ultra famous. Women swooned when they saw them, and people sold paintings, miniature paintings of them. People sold action figures of them. People sold their sweat, and so on. So gladiators were very, very important, but at the same time they were slaves. So there's a whole load on setting and what your gladiator is in society and how everything works. And then lastly, we've obviously got stats for guards, legionaries, civilians, Roman gang members, common beasts, some mythical monsters if you're playing a semi-historical. So we've got a one-book campaign here, and you can pick this up and you can run it as a procedurally generated or as a narrative campaign, whereby you've got an overarching story, as in the plot point campaign. You've got rules for integration into other campaigns. So it could be that the gladiators are called on by the legions to act almost as like special forces, because a legionary is going to be a good fighter, but they're also not going to necessarily have all the skills that a gladiator will have, when it comes to fighting in a town or one-on-one fights. So you can run it as that. You can run it in lots of different ways. You can even incorporate it into a straight fantasy campaign, and you could have humans and dwarves and elves fighting in the arena against captured goblins and trolls and so on. And there are rules for that. So it's a book that I've wanted to write for a very long time, and hopefully you'll pick it up. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. But it does bring that Roman arena, that thrill of the arena, that blood sport into Savage Worlds, and it works really, really, really well for Savage Worlds. So hopefully enjoy it, and thank you for listening.